So, hello. Once again, I am back with another Touchdesigner tutorial. This time it will be about one of my latest project files I released on my Patreon, which is this kinda moving, glowing gradient kind of thing, which I enjoy a lot. I don't know, moving gradients always make me feel really soft, just like a peach. Princess Peach. Yeah, it's a rather simple setup, but I made some stuff which makes it look smoother and gives you more control over color and the glow, basically. So it's still useful to watch this. And yeah, once again, I already have my default file already open, and we will start from scratch, so we won't need this. And so let's get started. So the first thing I will do is reduce my resolution, and then I will start with a noise. Basically, the noise will define the movement and everything regarding the movement, just like I said, and I will connect it with my background so we can see what's going on. And of course, the first thing we will do is make it move. So I have my uptime.seconds in a constant, and I will just chop my reference here. And right now it's a little bit too nervous, so I will divide it by 3 or something like that. That looks good. And then I want it to be a really big gradient, so I set the period to 5 and the harmonics to 1. And also I worked with a higher exponent because I don't want too much contrast going on. So just like this. It's at 1.89. And also I changed the pixel mode to 32-bit float, RGBA, and just so we have really smooth pixels going on. So, and now once we have the movement, I will bring in another noise. Just I copied my default noise, and then I plugged in my first noise into the second noise, and then I will plug that into my background. So it gives us more detail, and but it still uses the movement from our first noise, which is necessary. And then we will define the look and the grade of detail we want in our second noise. So that's why I like to use 2 noises in this setup. And I also made some changes to this noise. So first of all, I changed the pixel format once again to 32-bit float. And then I chose a different seed, just so we have some different stuff going on than in default files. And I brought up the period to 2, and I don't want any harmonics in here. I worked with a lower exponent. I set it to 1.8 or stuff like this, I don't know, just something like this. And also I worked with a lower amplitude, but I made those adjustments in the end when I wanted the gradient to look different. So basically this is just stuff I worked with, which I liked in the end, but you can see a little bit clearer what's going on with this noise when we set up our whole file. So yeah, Okay, so to give it a more morphing liquid feeling, I brought in a displace. And oops, that was not what I wanted. I wanted a displace. And also I will copy my first noise and will use that as the displace. And the displace weight has to be really low in order to be subtle and smooth. So I worked with 0.01 or something like that. And once again, this is up to you in the end. You can see a little bit clearer what's going on, and then you can make some more adjustments. But an important thing I did in order to have this kind of flat feeling, I set the exponent of this noise to null. And also I will work with a lower period, maybe 3. Yeah, I think that's nice. So you can already see what's going on here. So we get those edges we will use in the end to have more different color things happening. So and also this noise will be very important for our glow, which I will show in the end. But another thing I will do in order to have a little bit more detail is change the color mode of our noise for our second noise here to, I will turn off the monochrome so we can see a little bit clearer what's happening. And another thing I will do is inside of our displays, I will set the extend mode to mirror. And okay, so let's take care of our noise, our glow, I'm sorry. So we want the edges of our displacement, or of these edges here, we want them to glow. So I will bring in an edge which goes out of this noise with the heavy exponent or the heavy contrast. And we will make a feedback on that noise, on that edges. So first of all, I want that to be really fine and thin lines. So I set the strength to 0.1 and the sample step to something really, really low. So just 0.02. So it's a really soft and thin line. And then because this line is too sharp and I don't want that, so I brought in a blur. And I set the filter size of that blur to 32. So it's really heavily. So we have a soft glow going on. And then I will make a null, because now we will head into our feedback, and just in case I want to add something. So let's make a feedback, make a composite, change the operation mode to over, and plug in our null. So let's bring the null up so it's over the feedback, and then make this comp the target layer of our feedback. So now you can already see, now we have this glowing trail going on, and now we actually want it to disappear again. So of course let's bring in the level and just set the opacity to 0.97. So we have this, I don't know how to call that, but this ghostly trail going on. So another thing, I wanted to be even more glowing and subtle, so I brought in a blur between the level and the feedback. So we have even more blur. So I set that to 32, so really heavy, so it's really soft and nice, and I really love that. And then let's bring this into our setup. So I'm working with a select, so we don't have those long nodes going on. So I will just make a select and drag that in here, so we have this. And then I will make a composite. And in this composite, let's have a look what the different operation modes do. So if you want it to be really, really glowing and kind of bright, let's work with an add. This is great in this case, or the screen. Maybe even the over. But you have to do the select over the displays in this case. But I kind of like that. In my project file, I worked with a difference, because the difference gives us some shadows, which result in a kind of glowing way too. So we have shadows, and we can bring in a light too. And I will show you how I did that in my default file, in the file I showed you before. So I made another edge out of that noise, which will define the highlights. But in this case, I didn't bring in a feedback. So I just went out there, made that edge, and I worked with the same settings like down there. So I will just copy that edge and use that and make a comp before the shadow comp, and bring that in, change it to over, bring the edge up. So you have edges going on, and then you could insert a blur, and you have some glow going on and some three-dimensional feeling here. So it adds some layer to it. But today I don't want to work with that. I kind of liked the way we looked before, so I will just leave that here in case anyone wants to use it later. And of course you could also combine different kind of stuff. So you could bring in the shadows and then make another comp and bring in that select again, and then this time bring it in with an add. So it is a little bit more subtle. But let's delete that again. And I kind of like the glowing way, so I will just leave it on add. I really like that. So okay. Right now we already have a kind of cool and glowing gradient going on, but in my case I wanna have more control over the colors in this composition. So I will bring in a lookup. Where is it? There it is. And I will use this ramp I have in my default file to control it, to control the color. So first of all, let's use this first. Let's combine this to the background. And so the lookup, the first input is the image you want to colorize. The second input is the top you want to use to colorize. So the best thing to colorize a lookup with is a ramp. So you can have really high control, I set the ramp mode, the pixel format, to 32-bit float RGBA, just because I like to work with the same pixel formats in every top. So yeah, and so let's have a look. So right now we are working with a colorized image, and then we will put even more colors over it. So which confuses me a little bit, and I mean it works, but right now I have black, green, and white, which I want this to be colored, but I still have some yellow stuff going on, which you can see, and some red stuff, and that's because we are colorizing a colorized image. So let's insert a monochrome in between here, so we really have full control over it. And then let's add some colors we want. So I kind of like the green, but yeah, this is up to you, whatever you like. Let's bring in a blue. It's kind of nice, and maybe something red, and maybe let's work with something like that here, and maybe some black here. I really like to insert a black in the end of this ramp, because it gives those kind of nice edges, which I really like. So yeah, I think this is kind of cool to work with right now. Maybe let's get rid of that thing. Let's push them more together. I want it to have more black in the high areas, and yeah, whatever. I don't want to put too much detail in my color process. Just I want to show how it works. So now let's take care of the grain, because in the file I have shown in the beginning, I used some grain to give it a more analog feeling, and you can easily do that by let's copy our new noise. So bring in the noise and just set the type of the noise to random GPU, so it makes a kind of grain. And then if you use your lookup, or in my case I will insert a null here, so that's because I will insert some stuff in the end to show you some ways to adjust this gradient. So I have this null, and I will use that as a second input for the noise. Oops, not the second input, I'm sorry. The first input. So we have it colorized in that ways, in the different ways. And also I will change the pixel format of it to 32-bit float. And now let's make another. So we need to bring this grain into this composition. So we do that by adding another comp and just leave it on multiply, and then combine those two together again. So you can already see now we have some grain going on, but right now it's too heavy. So you can change that by playing with the amplitude of that GPU random noise. And I used something like 0.1 for something really subtle and smooth, and yeah. So that's the magic about that. And it gives a better feeling. I feel like we have some more glow going on, we have more stuff happening. So actually I want my noise to be orange right now. I'm getting annoyed of the green. So okay, and this is actually kind of nice. I really like this. I will leave it like that now. And okay, so basically that's the whole magic about those glowing kind of gradients. I really like, but I brought in some more stuff to give it even more detail and more small things which enhance the look. So another thing I did, once we go out of that lookup, I'm using an image filter out of the palette, which is the sharpen, to give us a little bit more sharper edges. So if I plug that in here, you can already see what this does. So I worked with something like this as the amount, and I set down the dry wet mix to something like that. And then once again I brought in more edges. So out of that sharpen, let's insert another edge. And let's work with this strength for now. And let's bring up, so you can see we have more different edges going on, which is cool, but not, we don't want every detail happening. So I set up the black level to maybe this. So we have this cool kind of reflections going on. And then I changed the color of that edges to black. And then I will insert another composite after the sharpen, and then I will bring in the edge. And I set the operation mode to over and brought the edges over here. And also I blurred the edges again with a really high filter size, so maybe 28 is cool. And let's change the color again so we can actually see a little bit better what's going on. And right now I don't see anything going on. So oh yeah, well, we see what's going on. So if I turn it off and if I turn it on, so we get even more glow happening. And I was a little bit confused why I set the color, the edge color in my project file to black, and that's because I worked with the difference here. So I had my shadows already happening in the beginning, and then I brought in my highlights with this edge in the end. So I set that to black in order to have the shadows going on, which I had in the beginning. So we'll leave that on white in this case, and I will leave that on add in this case. So yeah, basically that's the trick of this whole setup. So the highlights are pretty much defined by the edge in the end. So play with that. And another thing, let's have a look at our second noise we are using to define the amount of details we have. So if we bring down the period here, you can see we have this really wild kind of onion thing going on. And the higher the period of this is, the less color harmonics you will have in the end. So if you set this really high, you just have this smooth gradient going on, and the lower it is, the more different color harmonics you will have. So this is a great thing to adjust this this overall look. And also the more harmonics you will have, of course, it's the same thing happening here. So feel free to play with that. And of course another thing is to play with that displace weight. which will have a big impact, or with this noise. So the smaller it is, the more of these ripples you will get, and of course the higher it is, the less ripples will happen. So this is pretty important, and of course also this highlights are heavily impacted by the amount of blur you will give it. So if I turn down the blur of the feedback, you will get those kind of trails which will happen, which are also pretty cool to work with in case you want them, etc, etc, etc. So yeah, that's it. I hope you liked it. I hope you were able to understand something, and I hope you stay creative. I hope you're staying healthy, and most important, yeah, stay kind. So, goodbye.
Hello.